Welcome to another Camel Cast Lost episode. I'm sure you figured it out by now, but the boys didn't record anything Sunday. I have no idea why. They don't tell me anything. This lost episode is a little different as Anthony has been cutting conversations out of multiple episodes, usually a non sequitur or succinct conversation. Mostly these are good conversations done to cut the huge 2-hour plus videos down to something manageable. However, they're too small to put up by themselves. In short, this is a lost episode salad made of clips over the months. It starts with a drunk Anthony talking about a walk he had, then Xcom lore, and finally competitive map design. Anthony also needs to cut together the PC and Future Games show audio, but that's going to need more editing than even a normal podcast. Expect that never. He tells me he isn't motivated because none of the information or reactions will be pertinent thanks to the ceaseless march of time. What a bag. Now enjoy the audio.
I recently went for a walk in the park and there was a bunch of people in there and it was very, very nice. I had a great time.
You fucking people.
It's nice being outside.
It is. It's
fucking
weird.
Crackhead. You're all crackheads. Stay home.
I had this moment where I was just kind of like standing in the middle of this trail, and there was, and this is weird. Like people don't really know me, even if it's just the podcast. Where it was like I despise the outdoors. I'm a full grown nerd. Like fucking, I was literally raised on electronics and video games. So it's like there's this one point in the trail and it was kind of open. It wasn't like woodsy. The other parts of the trail are very woodsy. There's trees all around. And it was just very open. There's like tall grass, but not like crazy crops or anything. And I was able to see the mountains and stuff, and it felt nice. It felt like a weird sense of accomplishment, even though, you know, I was just standing in the middle of nowhere. And I don't know. I like going on walks. I as much as I hate nature and I like technology and I want to become a robot, there's just something about
Even when he becomes a robot, he's gonna wanna,
I'm gonna be a robot in the middle of the woods. I'm gonna bastion it up. There's gonna be moss on me.
All I hear right now is like Dr. Dugong from Venture Bros.
You're not wrong.
If you haven't seen Venture Bros, go see it. It's amazing.
Yeah,
you should turn to nature.
Yeah, we really need to plug Venture Brothers because we have so many more views than they do. Thank God. What would Venture Brothers do without the Camels fucking giving them a shout out?
Exactly.
Nothing.
Tell them.
Game Informer interview with lead designer Mark Nauta. He confirms that Xcom Chimera is in fact canon.
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of like, it was in my news. It was in my news because this was like before Chimera even released, and then we didn't record last week. But this is kind of evident just from playing the game that it's canon. But
fine, I'm fine with it being canon. I think it's interesting, and it's fun.
It's fine. The only reason I included it.
Everyone get your hands on a knot dog.
Yeah.
Fuck that snick. Let's go, dude.
The one thing that I wanted to mention that is very interesting, and I hope they kind of explain it in like further world building, hopefully XCOM 3, is you got to think of the world of XCOM is that it was like just our goddamn world, and then Advent takes over. We get this new world order thing. Everyone's under this one government. And there's revolutions and stuff, but there's still like zones, like there's new Alaska, the new Northern, and the new Arctic, and like all that type of stuff.
Guys,
and then Advent is getting rid of, so it's like, you know, I wonder what that means from a writing perspective, like for nationalism. Are there some people trying to make Russia a thing again, or America a thing again, or you know, things of that, like from what we've seen in Chimera where it's like City 13, they're still kind of keeping the authoritarianism a little bit. I think it's just been there's like what 2 generations that's just all they've known. So it's but I would like to see that expanded on.
There's a lot of cool like world. I'm glad Chimera's canon because there is a lot of really cool world building shit. Like
Yes.
I already said this in my week, but there's a lot of cool world building.
I was gonna say I'm very hyped for the prospect of. All right, so XCOM 1 and 2 has to do with like these aliens from space that are invading, and now that these aliens are like, you know, their brain fuck sugar daddies are now dead, and yeah, and now they're like free, and now they're like trying to like, you know, live and cohabitate with humans. The idea that now it's very possible that the new XCOM will be humans and aliens teaming up to fight different fucking aliens, especially from like the ocean. That's fucking sick.
It'll be
That's
there's
a cool
gonna
fucking plot hook.
They're gonna rip off Half-Life, and the Combine are gonna come and they're gonna fuck both the aliens and the humans. Highbrow Half-Life reference.
I'm
excited for it.
I do like that.
Race X, you cowards! Bring back Race X.
I'm excited for you know what I would like for XCOM 3? I would like a game that doesn't like the Terror from the Deep stuff and the weird like allusions to that are cool and all, but I would kind of like an XCOM 3 game that takes like the world ending kind of scope of a game and applies it to a game where I'm not fighting like invaders of Earth and I'm actually just like putting out fires in cities, like Chimera but on a world scale. You know what I mean?
Sort of XCOM Apocalypse-y.
Kind of like because they imply in Chimera that everything is not great. Like governments don't really exist anymore. It's more just like city states and whatnot. And I find that really interesting that it's like, well, now you have all these cities that are kind of in their own, that are kind of their own local governments. And so how does the world get along in that state? And I would like an XCOM game that I don't want an XCOM 3 that just goes, let's abandon all that shit and now aliens are coming again and so fight them with aliens on your team. Like I don't really want that. I want something that dives deeper into this.
They could do that with all the intrigue of that other stuff. It's totally possible.
They really should do both. It's just a question of what they're going to do first, because if people show enough intrigue into their universe that they're creating, they will make smaller games like Chimera touching
absolutely
on that more personalized touch. It's just, what are people going to want more? That more personalized touch, or let me get in there and get that Terror of the Deep, baby.
I mean, if the title of the game is going to be XCOM 3, then I feel like it has to play off the concepts of XCOM of it's you versus invaders.
But they could expand the system, because like in XCOM 1 and 2, you just had kind of the Bureau, and those were the only ones raiding you. And then certain countries could give you more or less depending on your reserve. So they could expand that with like cities, and that like if you do favors for some cities, there's some places that legit will not work with you. Like make it a lot more hardline, less unified, and make it more strategic because of that, where it's like, wow, if I help these people, then I'm not getting money from here. Stuff like that.
I love the conversations that some of these squad mates had with each other. It really did help build up a world, and
like wanting to fuck snakes.
Yeah, like wanting to fuck snakes.
Filters to the voice. It's really annoying to me that they just speak.
Bro,
English.
This is something I forgot to talk about in my week. Apparently, like Chimera shows its budget and lack of time in more ways than just what we see when we're playing it. Because I read on Reddit that apparently the voice actress for Torque didn't know the entire time she was recording her lines that she was voicing a snake. She had no clue.
They never told hatched. Her. Fuck that. You're wrong.
They never told. Apparently, they never told her. They straight up never. She tweeted it herself. They never told her that she was voicing a viper.
She was an alien. And
they could have.
Oh, okay, I'm an alien. But they didn't tell her what kind of alien.
But to me, that's kind of a failure of like the voice direction, that you don't tell your voice actors or actresses that they are voicing certain things.
Yeah,
like that's just kind of weird.
It's definitely a failure on the game design, on the voice, on the voice director's side. I still think the voice acting was pretty damn good, though.
It's fine. I do find it weird that vipers just sound like people.
Listen, well, see, that kind of makes sense though, because they were like thin men. and shit.
And they were meant for infiltration.
Yeah, they were. But then
that being said,
mutons and
that being said, Brandon, go play Kingdom Under Fire Crusaders and then complain about voice acting.
Yeah, I'm not. Listen, we're talking about some modern shit currently. All right, Kingdom Under Fire gets a pass. It's kind of
one where I could be like, how did they really be speaking of English within a few? I'll be gracious and say a generation, maybe.
That's not too bad. I mean, because again, they took over the world, so there's obviously a big push for integration.
I mean, also necessity is the mother of invention. When you're on an alien planet and you're forced to live there, you learn the fucking language.
Yeah, you learn. They've had 5 years.
They learned the universal language of English.
Fair point.
Good point.
Very fair point. But Axiom, and all the other mutons could have just kind of grew, happened to land and exist for the last 5 years in a place where people spoke English.
Yeah, and I mean, so that's what the Technoids can read minds, so they can just pick the words out.
We can use Zephyr as an example of aliens that landed and then learned English in certain places, kind of adapted an accent.
Wasn't Zephyr a human? Yeah, she
was a hybrid. Yeah,
that was taken and turned into an alien.
Like that's like the ex-Advent people.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's true. That's a fair point.
Then,
but the point still stands.
Cherub was a clone, so.
Yeah, fuck Cherub. I don't like Cherub.
I don't mind Cherub. I don't use him in on my team, but I don't mind him. He's a clone. He's like 5 years old. Leave him alone. He's a baby.
Hot.
That was a long lightning round tangent.
WWE 2K21 canceled.
Someone put the sirens on and right there.
No. I think this has happened. Now, I haven't played Valorant, so I can't say for sure. But I think this is just a thing that has happened with games where there's a difference for making a game so that it's competitive. And, you talk about Counter-Strike like 1.6, like it was very competitive. There were tournaments. I'm not pretending that there's not tournaments. But that's very different to esports level.
Yes.
Let me say too, just real quick. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just saying it's something I notice. I actually part of the game I like a lot is how fast-paced it is. Like you're always getting blood, and especially with the high lethality of the game, it makes it very enjoyable. It's high octane, in my opinion.
I wish I had a better example for you. To be completely honest, the only way I could ever explain it to you is if I showed you a map from like CS:GO, which is obviously very difficult for me to.
It's kind of like again, like when things are competitive, you have to keep balance in mind. But like esports level competitive, like there's a lot of like a big push for like fairness. So like you won't see things like asymmetrical maps. You'll see like very, you could draw a line through it, and you got your you got routes, and each one's different and stuff. But
people are thinking about it.
Right. Yeah.
And
a lot more.
Yeah.
Not that they didn't, but
like
in
one
a different way.
Right. One could argue, like someone at Riot sat down to create a map for Valorant, and they made it with, we need this to be esport now in mind, right? So they were like, well, what are the angles going to be? What's the methods of approach to this point? Whereas like way back in the day, when someone was making Dust 2, was that just a stroke of genius that they made one of the most popular first-person shooter maps of all time? They weren't designing that with esports in mind. They were just designing it for their game.
And you also get to things where it's like, then you start to ape what's popular. But then you think, in Counter-Strike, and it's like, one of my favorite maps to play was I didn't really play the bomb thing. I like the hostages one. So it's like, what was it? Venice, I think it was. That map was nuts. Like it was so asymmetrical. It was like if you went through like the apartments, it was like a completely different match than if you went up the road. And yeah, it was I enjoy that. God, I haven't played since like 1.6. I can't even remember if it was early or late or what. Christ. Maybe I shouldn't talk about these things, but yeah, it's
I'm trying to find I'm trying to find Venice. I don't remember what that map is.
It could be maybe it's Italy. No, Italy's different. Italy was a bomb, like kind
Oh,
of the bomb
Italy was
version.
the one. No. Italy was the hostage map. Italy was the one where if you spawn CT side, you go right and you go under that like underpass tunnel, and the hostage is like up in that house that's in the back right corner.
Yeah, I think so.
There's like a top floor and a bottom floor.
And
I think it's Italy.
And there used to be and it's interesting because it's like it's something that you can't do in Valorant, but you can do in Counter-Strike, where it's like you could have CT favored maps because the teams are going to rotate, like the T are going to become CT, so you could kind of have an imbalance in the way it's designed, just from directional facing and stuff. Where I mean, again, I don't know at Valorant, I don't know if you switch spawns like halfway through.
It's just like yeah, you do. But
Okay, so
here's the thing about Valorant. Like this is the best way I could explain it in a nutshell, right? It's like what's the name of that map? Maybe you two can help me because I don't have the map names memorized at the moment. But the one with the portals, what's the name of that map? Is it
No
Split?
idea.
I think it's called Split. I could be wrong. I think it's called Split, but I might be wrong. Anyway, the one with the portals. I think it's the only map with portals on it like that. B site. I think it's B site. Only has like 2 ways you can get to it. You go through mid, and then you get into that room that people call hookah, or you go to the other side, which is like B long, and that's it. Those are the only 2 ways you can get to that point. So if you're holding that, you know they're either coming from long or they're coming from that weird mid connector. That's it. The only difficulty you have there is that if you're alone on site, you can kind of only watch one or the other.
Not if you cipher.
Sure. But if you're alone on site for the most part, you can only watch like one or the other. And that's the difficulty of it. But now you take into account something like Dust 2 on Counter-Strike, which I'm sure there's people who are listening to this podcast who know exactly what I'm talking about because Dust 2 is one of the most popular fucking maps of all time. And you go A. Yeah, it's A. And there's like 3 different ways you can get to that point. You can go A long through the doors on the right. You can go down ramp mid through CT spawn, down into their spawn under that little tunnel, and then up to point which connects to A long, or you can go cat on mid to go like from mid upper to A and come out like onto bomb site. So when you're watching that point, you've got like 3 different ways people can push you. And when you're pushing it, you have 3 different options you can use to confuse people, all of which are very different in terms of like where you're coming from and how you get to the point. In Valorant, it's like there's 2. Like every bomb site feels like it's got 2 ways you can get to it, and they're both like kind of in the same direction. So unless someone goes all the way the fuck around and pushes through like a different site to go like through your spawn and flank it from behind, there's like 2 ways people are going to get to that point. That I guess that's like part of my problem with it. Is it's like not only are the angles kind of just like vanilla and plain, the map design just doesn't feel as creative. That's my one issue with it, which I think is kind of what you're getting at, Richie, without like having the history with like CS:GO maps and shit like that. Of like it does feel very basic. Like you've got the lanes and the lanes push to the fucking bomb site, and it's like you have 2 options and you get to the site and that's it, basically, for like every bomb site. Also, is that the map you're talking about that I linked in Discord?
Let me see.
Again, it's very, very good. I like the game. It's fun.
Looks like it, yeah.
Again, it's very high octane. It gets my blood pressure up in a different way than Dota does. See, I could play Valorant and not want to like, slit my wrists. Dota, nah.
You should play with us, Anthony.
Nah, because antivirus or anti-cheat.
Because he doesn't want to install Vanguard.
Who cares, man? They already know everything about you and your computer.
Yeah, but I could pretend. I'm well aware that this smartphone
fun.
next to me is probably recording and sending information to, I don't know, the fucking
You're recording yourself right now, mate.
Yeah, well, that's different. That has obviously my consent because I'm doing it,
Hey, and I know you always kind of hated like recoil in CS:GO and shit.
Boy,
right?
did I.
And like gunshot. Valorant uses kind of the similar system, but it feels like it's not as extreme.
Okay.
is the best way I could put it. Like first shot accuracy feels kind of tighter than it does in CS:GO. I could just be crazy, but it feels like it's a little bit easier to aim guns and actually control the recoil.
I mean, there's a point.
So maybe you'd like
it. I liked 1.6. I don't know why it kind of bounced off of Go the way I did. I don't know if they changed that or anything. Anyway,